is Detroit's own Jalen Anthony Rose.
What up, though?
I'm David Jacoby.
And on the cool check-in.
We are Jalen and Jacoby. What is it that we do?
We get it, people.
Yes.
What
Yes.
they want.
Jalen, sometimes you and I have to really break down a game. It's time for us to go deeper than the box score. Last night, we had a double overtime game between the Rockets and the Spurs, but should it have been? By now, you've seen it. The very controversial play in the fourth quarter. James Harden steals the ball. Towel guy got to get out the way. That's how good the steal was. He dunks it, goes through the net, and then goes back on top of the hoop. See, this is my point before we get to yours. James Harden goes after the ball because he doesn't see what happened, and I think that's where the refs got confused.
So a few things. I applaud a guy like James Harden that's almost averaging 40 points per game. That we have footage of him getting a steal playing defense.
Oh, he gets steals. He just doesn't play
going
defense.
the other way and finishing. But I got a theory for this one. First off, the league is going to modify this. It's really progressive. They do a great job of updating their rules and their legislations when needed. And this is a blown call by the official. At the time, the Rockets were up 13 points.
Yep.
This one play is not the reason why they lost. However, just like you, played a lot of basketball in rec, parks, backyards, YMCAs, and even in the NBA. What do you think about this?
I love what you're about to say.
The nets were too long.
Nets too long. When you said that to me this morning, I was just like, you are the best. There's no one else that's saying, you know what? Nets are too long.
Nets were too long. Because think about it. You watch NBA basketball all of the time.
All day, all night.
You don't see people shooting from the side and the net getting caught.
Happens in pickup all the time.
Happens in pickup all the time.
Yep.
The net's too long. That's the adjustment, along with the rule change. As long as the refs can go back and say it was a 2 or a 3 after the play, they should be able to do it on a play like that.
You know what's not going to happen? A couple things I heard this morning. You know what's not going to happen? They're not going to replay the last 7 minutes and 50 seconds.
No.
That's insane.
No.
They're not going to give the Rockets a win.
No.
That's absolutely insane.
No.
That's not going to happen. I don't even know why that was even proposed. They're not going to go back. Do you know what happened? The Spurs won the game.
Who proposed that?
I read it on ESPN. Oh. Yeah, it was just like, we're not going to go back. It's like, what's the league going to do now? Should they play the last 7 minutes, 50 seconds? Are you crazy? That's not how this works.
So it's human error. It happens.
Just like a missed foul call.
And I was watching the game, and I wasn't in such an uproar about it happening. The Rockets were playing well. They had the lead.
Yeah.
They were on the road. It was a missed call. It happens throughout the course of a game.
What do you think about the fact that D'Antoni said that he was not allowed to challenge because you have a 30-second window in which you could issue the challenge, and him arguing the call brought him outside of that window?
I just think that needs to get ironed out. And also, I think that was the refs penalizing him for complaining.
Yeah.
Which they shouldn't have did.
He was mad.
So when you make a mistake, you just got to own it. And usually the officials do it, and therefore you got to allow the person to vent.
Yes.
When you go and see that the call was missed, you got to give him that grace period to do so. It was unfortunate at that time they didn't do so. It should have allowed Mike D'Antoni to challenge.
I feel like it's like football. If other game action happens, then we're done with that play. But if other game action hasn't happened, there's no ticking clock. If we haven't inmounted the ball and we're still arguing, you should be able to issue the challenge.
But in basketball, what makes it different is the play doesn't always stop after that down like in football.
Yeah.
So that's why if a player, like they do this all the time on three-point shots in particular, they'll give you a 2 or they'll give you a 3, and then when the play stops, they'll go back and look at it.
Yep. So James Harden had 50 points in this game. Russell Westbrook had a triple-double. Great games, right? That's exactly what you want from these two players. Triple-double from Russ, 50 from Harden. However, combined, they missed 50 shots. They had 50 attempts at a basket that missed. Jalen, at some point, do you think this inefficiency is going to catch up to them?
It works both ways. It's feast or famine. And they're playing toward the analytics. And I've said this so very often. They can't consistently win games in the playoffs being top 5 in three-point attempts, but yet lower 5 in percentage, lower 3rd in defense. That math just doesn't add up.
Yeah.
How about this? The NBA, Progressive League, instituted shot clock around 1950. There's never been a player score 50 points in a game that was not as efficient as James Harden.
Ever.
That was the least efficient 50-point game.
You know what helps? 24 for
in the
24
history
from
of
the line.
basketball.
That's what helps. 24 for 24 from the line.
Oh, by the way, I got another one for you.
Oh, what's that, Mr. Rose?
Russell Westbrook scored 19 points.
Mm-hmm.
He took 30 shots. You said they combined him as 50, right?
Mm-hmm.
Only once in the last 30 years has a player attempted 30 shots and did get 20 points.
You know who else had 19 points? Austin Rivers. You know how many shots he took? Less than 10.
Clint Capella was 9 for 9.
Yeah, let's talk about that because I know Clint Capella's your guy. And every time we talk about the Rockets, you say, you know what they need? You know what they need? They need Clint Capella to produce. So this is what you've always wanted. 9 for 9 from Capella. Is this the player that you've always wanted to see?
Yes, but the game is always about balance. This is why I say analytics destroyed the game, because people now feel shooting 33% from the three equals a dunk or a layup. And it doesn't for anybody that's played basketball, because guess what you normally don't get on threes? Fouled. Mm-hmm. Guess what else you don't do? Slow down the game. Put the other team in foul trouble.
Also, long rebounds that lead to breaks the other way.
Get to set your defense because the team is taking the basketball out of the net. Those are things that are on a stat sheet. And so if you're able to feed Clint Capella around the basket, he got a nice little jump hook when you get him going. He's shown that he could be a finisher. I think when a guy's 9 for 9, and you said two other guys combined to miss 50 shots, okay, that balance is clearly off.
So something that's being overlooked from this whole dunk controversy and all the focus obviously on the Rockets is what's happening with the Spurs. Now, they got 19 points from Lonnie Walker in the fourth quarter. He played 35 minutes. Do you know what? I went to look it up. I was like, you know what? I haven't seen a lot of Lonnie Walker this year. He's not really in the rotation like that. He's had a bunch of games where he was under 10 minutes played. And listen, I would never question the genius of Greg Popovich. He's one of the best basketball minds on the planet. But do you expect to see more from Lonnie Walker as we get through the season?
Well, he did the typical rookie thing that you hate to have happen to you. He got in the doghouse early. The coaching staff, and Pop has come out and said this, basically felt like he wasn't giving the winning effort desired in order to get minutes. Murray got a contract this offseason.
Yep.
You understand what you're going to get from Patty Mills effort-wise. White was on Team USA this offseason. So they had a lot of guys playing minutes in the backcourt. And I kept saying, he can ball. He can ball. He can ball.
There's a reason you drafted him where you did.
So now all of a sudden, you put him in the fourth quarter, he erupts for 19 points, plays with emotion, you win the game. That's how you earn your minutes, young fella. And he did that last night, and I was happy to see it.
I hope to see more from him. He's a very exciting basketball player.
Love his hair, too.
Very quick question. Why are the Spurs so bad?
Defense. That was one of the things. Why didn't you like the Spurs or give them their props over the last 20 years?
Boring.
Right. You know what's boring? Defense. That's what's boring.
Yeah.
And they're not locking down the way they did. And in an era of a lot of teams shooting the three and the game has become homogenous in that way, they are just the opposite. Their top scorers, LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan, they thrive in the mid-range. They thrive going to the paint. So those two dynamics, and it's just a roster turnover. Look at the Golden State Warriors. They had 2 injuries and boom, lottery. It's a roster turnover for a team that's had so many great players. They've had Kawhi Leonard, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, David Robinson, Tony Parker. Like, they've had so many great players. It's just a roster turnover.
Jalen, Luka Doncic, 20-year-old man, continues to absolutely tear up the NBA. The latest victims were the Pelicans. Doncic had 33 points, 18 rebounds for this young man. So we talk about Luka basically every day because he's doing something that's worth talking about every day. But my question for you today is different.
Okay.
What does Luka need to add to his game to get better? Like, what is he missing? How can he improve?
Well, you want him to compete better defensively, but all players have strengths and weaknesses. And if you got a guy like this that could dribble, pass, and shoot, give me points, rebounds, and assists, I like the fire and the attitude that he brings to the table. I like that he's clutch. He's a leader. He's really smart. He's seasoned beyond his years based on his international professional experience. He's basically what you want in a player. He's not going to be first-team All-NBA defense.
Nope.
But at the same time, when you're getting me numbers like that, I'll get somebody else to play defense for you.
So Luka's been like a lightning rod of attention. Everyone's talking about Luka, and he's blowing up the league, and God bless him. He's so much fun to watch. But what's happening is people aren't talking about Kristaps Porzingis. Do you know why? Kristaps Porzingis has not been playing well. His last 4 games, under 10 points, shooting 26% from the floor. I like getting 2 blocks, but Jalen, is this him getting back from an injury, or is this sort of like the new reality for Kristaps?
I don't think this is the new reality. I do believe a lot of it has to do with him returning to the floor after missing so much time.
Yep.
I think next year, kind of like I said about Gordon Hayward, will be a better sample size of the kind of player and the promise that he's already shown to allow him to be an all-star in the Eastern Conference. But here's the one thing that he has to learn to do. As a 7-footer, I tell you, I love the way he blocks shots. I love the way he shoots threes. However, he has to play through contact. You see that 25%? When people wall him off or contest his shots and play without fouling, instead of getting those and ones or playing through contact and finishing, he misses a lot of those shots. And that's why a guy his height can have struggles where he's shooting that percentage.
It's also an adjustment for him. Like, the Knicks used to just post him up. You know, it's like we're running the offense through Kristaps, and now the offense is clearly going through Luka Doncic.
And there's a sea change. And it happens throughout the league. Anthony Davis did it when he went to play with LeBron. Paul George did it when he went to play with Kawhi. He ain't the best player on the team no more.
No.
So now you got to find ways to play off the best guy instead of the other way around like it was in New York City. And he'll figure it out.
Jalen, you brought up LeBron James and Anthony Davis. We will talk about them and their big win in Denver right after. Coming to you live from Pier 17 in the South Street Seaport and brought to you by Chase. Welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. Jalen,
what up,
Lakers and Nuggets in Denver last night.
I was watching.
LeBron had 25. AD had 25. Yeah. The Lakers won the game. They're now 18-3, tied with the Bucks for the best record in the whole entire league. So why do I feel like the Lakers still need to add some pieces to get better?
Because you want to see them knocking down the three-point shot more consistently. You understand that there are going to be times where they go against top-flight point guards that they're going to need to slow down. They still need to figure out what their closing team is going to be. You still want to see Kyle Kuzma play to the form that he played at last year. This team has been terrific in the regular season, but like most squads at this point of the year, still have room for growth.
They do, and they've got a big road trip coming up, kind of like a sink or swim. Let's see who we really are road trip. But when I watch this team, like, I'm a die easy Laker fan. Right? You know I love LeBron. So I'm looking at this team and I'm like, this is my title favorite, but I feel like they still need defense and shooting. Same thing we say every year about LeBron James.
Well, here's the thing about their early schedule. It was really favorable, a lot of home games. Yep. It wasn't one of the toughest in the league. As you talked about, they're going to get the road now. And usually when you hit the road, your calling card's got to be your shot making, in particular from three, and if you're able to get timely stops. The one thing they do have that you should appreciate as a Daisy fan, they got size.
Yeah, they're big.
And athleticism.
They're big.
Okay, so you can put a lineup out there with LeBron and Kuzma and or AD, and then pick a big. JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard playing quality minutes for them. So
big on being a big.
I think Danny Green is still a knockdown three-point shooter. They'll figure out what they need, but I agree with you. On the perimeter, you want to make sure that depth is a lot more consistent.
So, Jalen, there's negativity inside my heart.
Caruso caught a nice dunk.
Always. But you know that I'm not afraid to be critical of certain players.
Uh-oh.
And I'm not afraid to go negative.
Uh-oh.
Do you remember when everyone was penciling in Nikola Jokic as the MVP in the summer? Do you remember him in the playoffs last year when he was, changing the center position? Nikola Jokic has low-key been trash lately.
So, David.
Jalen, it has been 5 games, and he has not scored 20 points in those 5 games in a row.
David, the last 3 games, he has 23 points. But I got to tell you what the difference between being a die-hard fan and a die-easy fan. Remember, that was our guy.
Oh, yeah.
So now it's like that?
Oh, yeah.
Remember, you was comparing your body to his?
No. Oh, yeah.
We put people up on the Nuggets. We put their roster up there, called them the deeper team. So you just going to jump off of our guy's bandwagon?
Listen, no. Here's what I'm saying. I'm not off the bandwagon yet.
You said you remember when people was talking about he was going to be in the MVP conversation?
I know. I'm about to jump off the bandwagon. I'm about to jump off the bandwagon.
You know who was saying
I'm about to jump off the bandwagon.
Clearly.
I think I'm off. You know what? Nikola, go ahead. You got to earn me back. Nikola, you lost me. You can't put 20 points in 5 basketball games. Are you hurt? Are you out of shape? What's happening, Nikola? Do you remember the playoffs last year? Do you remember what he was doing in the playoffs last year?
Jacoby, listen to your brother.
No, I don't want to listen anymore.
I'm going to give you a
I'm off the bandwagon. I'm off. You on the bandwagon? I'm staying on the side of the road. Wait, with my thumb out.
Okay.
Where my thumb out?
Remember, I'm trying to give you an opportunity to buy the Nuggets low. You down on your guy. You jumped off of our guy. That's our guy.
What do you mean buy him low? They got like the second best record in the West.
I'm just
buy him low.
Well, you're talking about not living up to expectations.
Nikola Jokic.
Correct. I'm trying to tell you. As the season, well, here's a couple of things that happen. In all honesty,
You know, he's a stretch mark 5. I think he just got to work himself into shape.
yeah, you got to trademark that. You got to trademark that.
He's stretch mark 5.
He came into the season out of shape,
Yeah.
and being a stretch mark 5, you're playing a lot horizontally, not vertically.
He's growing a lot horizontally.
Correct. So now what people are doing, if you notice, hands out, hands up, switching a lot, putting smaller people on him when he at the 3 line. And those matchups that he was getting last year, he's not necessarily getting. But for a guy like Paul Millsap, he's been taking a good opportunity to make plays. So since he scored over 20 points, I'm trying to tell you, my guy, the Joker, I'm still
Where are
riding.
all those highlight passes? Where are all those thread the needle passes? Where's all that magic that we saw from him last year? Where is it, Jalen Rose?
I got you, Joker.
Joker, I'm out. I'm out. Bye. Jalen, the other team in Los Angeles also played last night. The Clippers got the win, and my guy, Montrezl Harrell, had 26 points. Montrezl Harrell, you know that's always been my guy.
Yeah,
ever since college.
Yep, no doubt.
So here's my question.
I was at the game when he beat Michigan in the championship for Louisville.
Montrez played 30 minutes off the bench. Zubac played 14, and he started. Why do they do it like this?
So it's almost like not starting Lou Williams. Usually you want your primary ball handler to be somebody that's going to get you those buckets, but it depends on how they're getting them based on your style of play. You don't want Lou Williams to necessarily have to start off the game having to guard Damian Lillard because you don't want to pick up fouls. The same thing with Montrezl Harrell. You don't necessarily want him starting the game guarding Anthony Davis. As a great coach like Doc Rivers, guess what you do, however? You insert him when you're ready. Oh, they made 1 or 2 moves? 1 or 2 people in foul trouble? Now get in there. And they have such great chemistry together, you don't want to break up that tandem. So now you can't put Montrez in the starting lineup and take him away from Lou, and or vice versa, because they got such a great thing going. And remember, they did this last year as a playoff team that played really well. So now you add Paul George. You add Kawhi Leonard. You put Zubac in the starting lineup for height and for fouls to eat up some of those minutes.
You know what's crazy? Talking about how well they played in the playoffs. They took the Warriors to 6 games. Now the Warriors in the lottery. Like look how look at this. It's all good just a week ago.
Yeah.
So
happy birthday, Jay. 50 years.
Shout out to Jay-Z, Sean Carter, Nas Carter's uncle. The Heat beat the Raptors, which brings them both to 15-5, tied for second in the Eastern Conference. Jalen, we celebrated the Raptors for overplaying expectations. It's now time for the Heat to get their shine. How have they been able to do this through 20 games?
None. Rookie of the month. Eric Spoelstra, player development. I know when we watching games together, you get sick of me saying this, but I'm going to say it about a couple of coaches. Doc Rivers is good at it. Rick Carlisle is good at it. Clearly Pop is good at it. And Eric Spoelstra. They're really good at taking players that when you watch them play.
I'm going to put Dwayne Casey and Nick Nurse in there too, because what they do with the Raptors has been really
well said. Well said. Good call. You watch them play, you see Jones come flying out of the air, catching a lob, looking like a left-handed jump man. You're like, where did that come from? You know? And I want to give props to one, Jimmy Butler. Because like I told you, when he was showing up at 3 in the morning, that set the table for you guys got to come on my level. And I know Pat Riley was somewhere loving it. And guess what the guy started doing? Coming at 3 in the morning. So now you create a culture, and a guy like Justice Winslow has improved his game, showed that he can initiate offense, is a capable shooter from 3. So now all of these guys, and then you got Big Bam playing D, switching on pick and rolls, blocking shots, doing rim runs. And when you have that collection of guys that's going to continuously play defense, now you got a guy you can get a ball to at the end of the game.
Jimmy Butler.
Here, Jimmy, take us home. He had a triple-double in the game. They don't have to wonder what they're going to do at the end of the game. Give it to Jimmy.
It's a great win for them.
That's a great win
for them.
By the way, they're the only team to beat the Bucks and the Raptors.
We are 20 games into the season. I'm starting to look at it like, maybe it's not going to be 1, 2, 3 Bucks, Celtics, Sixers in whatever order. You know what I mean? Like one of these two teams could really sneak into that top 3 and host a playoff series.
We're giving the Heat their flowers right now, and they deserve them.
They do. Jalen, now it is time for news that matters. Jalen, I bet you didn't even know this. Snoop Dogg is releasing a new album, but it's going to be much more useful for me than for you. Would you like to know why?
Sure.
Coming out with a lullaby album for kids.
Smart.
For little tiny babies.
Smart.
I'm so excited for this. My kids are going to be rocking to Snoop Dogg when they go to bed every single night.
Master P, Snoop, these guys are terrific entrepreneurs, ambassadors for entertainment, and continue to come with ideas that once they have them, everybody else on the sideline like, why I didn't think of that?
You know what? I'm so glad you brought up Master P, because we have some news about Master P that we will be discussing next. And who's going to join us?
Bay Area's own Malika Andrews.
Malika Andrews in studio. Stay tuned. I'm staying in Friday night, and I'm watching NBA action on ESPN. 8 o'clock, we got the Nuggets against the Celtics. And then in the nightcap, which I will probably fall asleep at halftime for, we have LeBron and the Lakers traveling to Portland to take on Dame and the Blazers. And we have more big games in college basketball. Tonight, it is Notre Dame against number 3 Maryland. That starts at 7:30. That is followed by Ohio State taking on the Tar Heels of North Carolina. That is at 9:30, and that's tonight on ESPN. Welcome back to Jalen Jacoby. Jalen, who is joining us in the studio? Who is joining us in the studio?
The future Robin Roberts. Malika Andrews is in the building.
I'm so glad to have you here because you're going to graduate just like Marcus Spears did. Eventually, you're going to be like, you know what? Oh, thank you so much for having me on, but I've got other commitments. I'm on ESPN 1 now. I don't know if you guys know that.
I'm not going to say that won't happen.
Oh, it's going to happen. Oh, I'm going to say it will happen. Thank you so much for coming through, Malika. Malika, you know, you live in New York now.
Yes,
and two of the teams that you cover are the New York Knickerbockers, trash, and the Brooklyn Nets.
I just like saying Knickerbockers.
Yes.
Knickerbockers.
They're Knickerbockers.
Yeah.
I have a theory about the Nets and Kyrie Irving.
All right, I'm just going to leave it.
So the Nets, they've been up and down. They're not exactly playing up to expectations. Kyrie Irving is looking at his homeboy KD in street clothes, and he's like, that looks like fun. He's like, he doesn't have to play. So I have a theory that they have a lot of fun on the bench, and Kyrie said, you know what? My shoulder hurts. maybe I'll go in street clothes and sit next to my friend KD. What do you think about this theory that, I'm not saying he's not hurt, but maybe he's just enjoying his time not playing basketball?
I think you're incorrect.
Okay.
Here's the thing. So Kyrie has missed. He's going to miss 2 more games. He has missed the past 9 with a right shoulder impingement, and that's kind of. I keep saying the word squishy to Kenny. It's a squishy injury because it's not one where you look in the monitors, you look at the X-ray, you look at the MRI, and you're like, okay, now it is fixed, and now we are good, and now we're going to move on. It's one that is kind of a little bit of a trial and error in terms of his recovery period. They say they feel better about it than they did last week. Kenny Atkinson said yesterday that he feels like Kyrie is getting closer, he's getting better, he feels like they finally turned a corner, and they're seeing kind of light at the end of the tunnel. But it's been a longer tunnel than they thought it was going to be. And I think that came to a peak when he didn't play in Boston, right? I think that's the game.
Wait, he didn't play in Boston?
I know, it was shocking.
He didn't play?
The vigor in which he was booed, would have made you think that he was actually there. But I'm going to say he's not faking it, especially because I have a little shoulder impingement.
Jalen's had a shoulder thing. Jalen's had a shoulder thing for like 5 years now.
No, it's been a year.
Yeah,
I've had it for a year, and I wake up every morning and I'm like, oh. I mean, but I still go to work, so it's.
I thought I would be the only one taking shots at Kyrie.
I don't have to shoot basketball for a living. I will say that, but yeah, no, it's a real thing. It's just a matter of pain tolerance, and that's what makes it tough. It's not like, oh, your broken bone is healed. Time to get back on the court, you know.
So they were 42-40 last year. You add KD and Kyrie. There's a before and after here. Let's take a look at the numbers when Kyrie plays versus when he doesn't play. One person in particular that's been benefiting, Spencer Dinwiddie. He's been balling.
Yep.
What do you make of them playing better without him?
You know, I think that Spencer has a lot of institutional knowledge, right? He's played in the system for a long time. And so on the one hand, you could say, okay, this is Kyrie is a problem in the locker room. And that is one fair way to look at it, just based off of what happened in Boston. But the other thing to look at is just the fact that Spencer's been around a while. He knows what Kenny Atkinson wants. He's familiar with some of these players that he's out on the court with. He's familiar with the system, and he's kind of risen to that occasion. the downside of that for him is while he's playing himself into the All-Star conversation, right?
Yep.
He's playing himself out of the Sixth Man of the Year award. And so that sort of hangs in the balance. And Kenny Atkinson has said that he's not committing to Spencer Dinwiddie being in the starting lineup when Kyrie comes back. But he has floated, well, maybe Spencer will start a couple of games and we'll have Kyrie lead that second unit, especially as he's coming back from injury.
That's fair. Listen, I don't lie into microphones. So I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this into microphones. Raise your hand if you read the entire Instagram post that Kyrie posted after when he didn't play against the Celtics. I did not read it.
Oh, raise your hand if you didn't read it?
If you did not read it.
Oh.
I didn't read the whole thing either.
It was too long.
Yeah, it was too long. It was way too long.
It was just I needed to get my glasses out for some of the smaller print in there. That's more the case. It was just like a lot of this going on. And we were debating whether or not to read it on air, and it was like, let's just put it as a full screen graphic.
Yeah.
This is too long. We can't.
It's an hour show. We didn't have time to read on it.
Exactly.
So you covered the Bucks last year, and they are now first in defensive rating.
Zing.
They are second in offensive rating.
Zing.
Yet they don't seem to be considered a title favorite. Why do you think that is?
I mean, they're in Milwaukee. That's part of it.
Cream City.
Yeah, so I made that reference in a story last year, and a ton of people were like, what is Cream City? And now it's on their jerseys, so I win.
Correct. Big W for you.
So, yeah, Cream City. I mean, they're in Milwaukee. That's part of it. They're buried a little bit. And there are sexier teams out there, right? There are spicier headlines to be had. There are more kind of dynamic, exciting players off the court that draw in the attention that the Bucks don't. But that's also the Bucks' secret sauce, right? They really have no drama. DJ Wilson said it the other day. This is the reason why we are so good is we are so close off the court. We kind of are able to keep everything out. You don't hear a lot of things coming out of that locker room that you would find concerning. That's their MO. The question is whether or not they're going to be a title team this year is, did they get deeper in the offseason than they were last year?
Let's check out their numbers during this 12-game win streak. And to answer your question, Jacoby, I think it's because right now the NBA is about storylines. And people don't consider them to have a dynamic duo. Greek Freak is the reigning MVP.
Even though Chris was an all-star last year?
Correct. Because was he an all-star or is he going to be a perennial all-star? He still has to graduate to that. They continue to play well, and he missed some time.
He doesn't sniff the all-star game if he's in the Western Conference either. Yeah, that's the thing. So, Jalen, they're 20th in the league in three-point percentage. Do you think that will hurt them eventually?
Well, if you look at the competition, Philadelphia doesn't shoot the three well.
Right. No, they don't.
And Boston isn't big up front. Right. So each of those teams has flaws. That's why those are the three teams, depending on what happens with Oladipo and Indiana, that have separated themselves in the East.
Well, we talked about this a little bit before.
And Toronto, I got to put some respect on their name.
Yeah, you got to put some respect on their name. Thank you. But we talked about this before on the show. In the regular season, their three-point shooting isn't a huge issue. It was in the playoffs when they needed some perimeter shooting to, one, create space for Giannis, but two, to be able to hit those daggers down the stretch, because the other teams that they played, particularly the team they lost to, the Raptors and Kawhi Leonard, they had players that could hit those big-time shots at the end. Giannis can't bully his way to the paint in the same way. That being said, a big part of their three-point shooting woes this season, I think, comes from Brook Lopez. And the fact that he has not hit those shots.
Yeah, he made 170-plus last year.
We're going to move on. I have a very simple question for you, Malika. Uh-oh. Can Luka Doncic keep this up? Can he keep this up?
Yes.
Like, are we? Yes. Luka Doncic is going to be doing this for the next decade.
Is a phenom. Because that man... That is a bad, bad man.
Yes.
That is a bad, bad man. He had a career high 18 rebounds last night. That's not even counting the 33 points he had in 28 minutes. That is insane. I mean, you can just run down the list of accolades. He is the most triple doubles of any player at 20 years old. He's the only player in the past 20 seasons to score 15 points and 10 rebounds in a single quarter. That's regardless of his age.
Wow.
He is a wunderkind, a wonder child.
Coming into this season, I wouldn't have called him a top 10 player. Now I am.
Yeah.
I would call him an MVP favorite.
What surprises you the most about his how he catapulted himself into that conversation?
I think because we tend to still, even though the game is infiltrated with those with foreign players, with players that didn't grow up in the United States, I think they still somewhat come from out of nowhere. You see Kristaps Porzingis get booed on draft night, and I think Luka Doncic was still a niche name when he came into the league. He's not particularly buddy-buddy with reporters. He kind of keeps to himself. He's a very, game-on type of player. And I think that caught people off guard. It's the demeanor. It's the stone cold assassin. Baby-faced assassin.
You just gave him a comparison by the way you described him to the Greek Freak.
Yeah.
An international player. Yep. People didn't really realize how good he was going to be. May not get the respect initially based on his game, and then he takes it and he goes to another level.
So Malika, you've been on the show before. You know how we do. We don't always talk about sports. It is now time for some news that matters.
Boom.
I love ramen noodles.
I do too.
And I'm not talking about fancy gourmet ramen restaurant.
That's not. We're talking about the noodles with the styrofoam cup that you pour the tea kettle.
Yes. You can barely consider food. Like those ramen noodles are my ramen noodles.
Milligrams of sodium. Go.
Well, now we have a new type of ramen noodle hitting the market, Malika.
Dun, dun, dun.
Master P.
It's not just chicken.
See, he did the Louisiana thing. It's all like Louisiana-themed flavors. That's where he really got me. If it was just like chicken and beef and pork, it's like, all right, whatever.
We've seen this before.
He the ultimate entrepreneur.
Malika, where can the people check you out?
Nowhere. Just kidding. At Malika_Anders on all social media platforms.
Well, you are welcome to come back until you graduate from us, and then don't come back anymore. When we do come back, Tony Ferguson said something about Khabib. I'm very concerned for his health. I'll tell you what that is right after this. Welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. Jalen, we don't force topics on this show.
Not at all.
And you're very particular about what we discuss on this program.
Yes, and speaking of discussions.
What?
Something happened on yesterday's show. Tommy, roll the tape.
Tommy?
Can you name me the members of New Edition?
Bobby?
Don't tell him in his ear.
Bobby? I'll take my earpiece out. Bobby, Johnny, Ricky, Ronnie, and Mike. Earpiece was out. Got you. You know
Very
why?
nice.
Because I knew we were going to talk about it. I knew you were going to ask me that question right before we started. I looked it up. I'm on
in other words, you didn't know.
I'm on you. I knew you were going to ask me.
You forgot Johnny Gill.
I said, Johnny, dog, rewind the tape. I got them all. I wrote them down. That's why I took my earpiece out all dramatic.
He straight wrote them down.
We got to talk.
You can't even cheat properly.
We got to talk. I noticed that whenever I do something wrong or incorrect or embarrassing on the program, it shows up on the program the next day. But when you do something embarrassing, wrong, incorrect, we either got to edit it out, right? You got to edit it out. Oh, gosh, we got to fix that. We got to fix that. I said that wrong. We got to fix it. Or I just let it slide. So if we're going to start doing this, we can really do this.
I love you.
I love you
I got to say one thing that's really important.
What's that?
You wrote down the names of the group. You had the answers to the test. You knew it was coming. Why you didn't write down Ralph, dog?
Do you think that I'm a smart person? Do you think I'm a smart person?
Yes.
Well,
smart enough to cheat and get it right? Oh, my goodness.
Then you have been fooled. Can we go back to the show now? It's time for Keep It Moving. If you want to discuss the topic, say hit the brakes. If not, we keep it moving. And if you get something wrong, I'll play it on the show tomorrow. Are you ready, Mr. Rose?
I'm just happy that we have a member of the mighty Wu-Tang Clan participating on our show.
Big shout out to Method Man.
Yes, indeed.
Jalen.
Yes, indeed.
Jerry Jones said something about Jason Garrett. Keep it moving or hit the brakes.
Definitely going to keep it moving.
All right, keep it moving on that. Method Man.
We keep it moving. We keep it moving.
Ron Rivera got fired. Keep it moving or hit the brakes.
New ownership. Keep it moving.
Keep it moving.
We keep it moving. We keep it moving.
We have results of the college football poll.
Oh, definitely keep it moving.
Okay.
It's the same 4 teams from last year. And Michigan lost.
Tony Ferguson did something that I do not like.
Hit the brakes.
Okay, Tony Ferguson is going to fight Khabib.
Ooh.
And he said that he was going to make Khabib urinate blood.
Oh.
Now, if you don't follow UFC that closely, Khabib is a bad man. He was wrestling bears when he was 6. You don't talk to Khabib like that. Last time we saw Khabib, he was flying over the octagon, attacking people. Why would you do this, Tony? Why would you do this?
That visual and just the thought of that happening to a human being.
Don't make Khabib mad.
It hurts me.
I might sign up to fight Khabib if I was a fighter for the check, but no, I wouldn't. Don't literally or proverbially poke the bear. Don't do that.
Blood in your urine is
I love
no
Khabib.
joke.
We might live our entire lives and never see Khabib lose a fight.
That is
I'm not even
no
lying.
joke.
Moving on. The Magic beat the Wizards. Do you want to talk about it?
I do.
Oh, good. Say hit the brakes then.
Hit the brakes.
So, Beal had 42 points, but I want to talk about a gentleman by the name of Markelle Fultz. Markelle Fultz, he put in 20 himself. Now, you remember the Magic extended him over the offseason. I was thinking to myself, wouldn't they want to see him play first? They must know something I don't. Markelle Fultz worked his way into being a rotation player in the National Basketball Association.
And don't sleep on Fournier, too. For all of the people that play fantasy, he's one of those sneaky guys you always look down at the box score, you get numbers. He had 30-plus in that game. I'm really happy for Markelle Fultz. And you know how I stood on the table and felt like he was done wrong by Philadelphia when he had a triple-double the final regular season game. You're going against Jason Tatum, the guy he was basically traded for, and give him DMPs.
Yep.
That, to me, can destroy a young player emotionally and psychologically to the point where I said he'll never live up to the hype in Philadelphia.
No.
And so for him to now have gained the confidence of the Magic to give him the deal that you talked about, give him minutes, and for him to put up 20 points the way he did is really impressive. We got to get him on the show.
You want to have Markelle on the show?
Yeah, I would
love to have Markelle on the show. Moving on, the Yankees are looking to make some big acquisitions. Keep it moving or hit the brakes.
The Yankees, y'all can't buy everybody.
And it feels like they can, though. It really feels like they can, though.
Keep it
really
moving,
feels
man.
like they can, though. Let's keep it moving, man.
We keep it moving.
I have big news about something you and I are very passionate about, and that is sneakers.
Hit the brakes.
All right, we'll hit the brakes. Nike and Travis Scott has unveiled an interesting collaboration between the Jordan brand and the classic Air Jordan 1. You know, I love those. My favorite Jordans. They're going to do a collaboration with Dior. They will have Dior Jordans that will come at a 4-figure price tag. Jalen, there's something about this I don't like. Something about like a designer brand like Dior collaborating with Jordan. It's one thing to have like the Travis Scott Jordans, but Dior Jordans reportedly costing $2,000? That's kind of corny to me. Why do I feel that way?
I think what has happened, and both of us being sneaker heads, and fortunately for me, I've been involved with a couple of sneakers that went mainstream. I just don't necessarily like when the prices get so astronomical.
It's ridiculous.
It reminds me of what happened to tickets to sporting events. Initially, they were purchased by fans.
Yes.
Now they're purchased by corporations.
I got 3 kids. I'm like, oh, I'll take them to a Knicks game. No, I won't. No, I won't.
And it's the same thing when I think about, like, for example, the Yeezys, I was saying the same thing. It's like, it's one thing to have some classic kicks. It's another thing for them to cost $3,000, $4,000.
I paid $2,000 for a pair of Jordans and they get dirty like the 3rd time I wear them. No. Moving on, Jalen. Another thing I know you love.
Puma.
Fajitas. I've got news. Are you ready? In Houston, there's a restaurant and they're selling fajitas that come with gold-flecked tortillas for $400. Now, I've seen you spend a lot of money on lunch before. What would have to come with a fajita to be worth $400?
First off, I don't want any gold in my food.
What does gold taste like?
Right?
Put some hot sauce on there. How about this? No gold, add sauce.
And what needs to come with it, for me, a foot massage.
Something.
How about that?
$400 fajitas?
Yeah, that's extra. If you're in Houston, here's what you should do. Don't go get a $400 fajita. Don't stand in a long line to eat the overrated Popeye chicken
sandwich. Don't get fired. I know you very well. Don't get fired.
Go eat at Bun B's restaurant.
Oh, okay.
That's what you do when you're in Texas.
Okay.
Go patronize his business, not these guys.
Yeah, and that'll cost you about $30. You got the other $370. Go to Treasures. Moving on. Jalen, we haven't talked about it yet, but you know we got to talk about it. Jalen reacts to Michigan basketball, Juwan Howard's big loss in Louisville, right after this. Welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. Jalen, we haven't talked about it yet, but you know, we're not going to run from topics.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about my outfit.
No, we're not going to talk about your outfit. Jalen, you okay, all right?
Take this parachute off, I might fall and die.
Okay. Here's the thing, Jalen Rose. Michigan lost. They were going up against the number 1 team on the road. I didn't really feel like they were going to win. They didn't just lose. They didn't really threaten the Cardinals either. I know you watched every second of this game.
I did.
How did you feel about their performance?
I was watching the game thinking this is a perfect example of why I don't bet on sports.
Okay.
Because like you, I saw this coming. I didn't anticipate them going from being unranked to being undefeated
To beating the number 1 team. Yeah, exactly.
And by the way, they were just in the Bahamas. You take home that trophy. You end up being in the championship game. When everybody signed up, it seemed like that was supposed to be Carolina. Seemed like that was supposed to be Oregon. All of a sudden, you beat Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
You beat Gonzaga. You fly home with the trophy. And your next game is on the road against the number 1 team in the country. I knew that was going to be an uphill battle.
How do you feel like they need to improve?
So when they're at their best, is Simpson creating, not only for himself or for others. Teskey played terrific.
Love Teskey.
He had 18 and 10. He was the only player in double figures. By the way, Louisville only had 2 players in double figures.
They only scored 58 points.
But the key is always going to be taking care of the ball and making the 3. I think the effort defensively is something that they're going to be able to rely on consistently, because I know that's what their coaching staff is stressing. Yeah, you can do all of this stuff on offense if you play defense. And so I think that's going to be something that's consistent. Now, the shooting comes and go. And that's going to be a key. Consistently knocking down the open shots in particular.
Jalen, we're going to honor our friend Stuart Scott today. We also want to drive awareness for cancer research. Stuart, is obviously important to everybody at our company and this entire industry. How do you want to celebrate Stuart on his day?
So I'm one of the fortunate people that could call Stuart a friend, that worked a lot with him, that looked up to him, that not only was inspired by him, but appreciated the fact that he was always a voice of reason that I could go to as an industry tastemaker himself. Rest in peace, Stu. I love you and I miss you.
If you want to support the Stuart Scott Cancer Research Fund, go to v.org/donate. We'll be back tomorrow.
Shout out to his beautiful queen daughters.
At 2.
We got to give the people